Hello, and thank you for having me at this event. I'd like to thank Rodrigo for inviting me because when it comes to the things that we are going to talk about today, this idea of human risk and how we can help people make better decisions, that's really the passion of my life. And so being able to address everyone here is really, really an honor. As we get into this presentation, we have to realize that everything that we are seeing, everything that we are participating in today's society is being touched by AI to the point where it's really, really difficult to tell what's real and what's not, what to expect and what not to expect. See, I mean, you already didn't think that was coming. You thought that was a regular title slide for a presentation. But our expectations can be subverted that quickly because we live in this age where we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. And people are learning how to take advantage of that. Cyber criminals and scammers and disinformation artists know how to take advantage of that and to really work the fact that we're not ready for it because humans, us, the people that we're trying to serve in our organizations, we don't adapt to technology and change in society very fast. However, technology is on this exponential curve right now. It is evolving super rapidly. And anybody that's been around for the past couple of years has realized that. I mean, the pace of change seems faster to me now than at any other part of my career, specifically generative AI. This is evolving faster than any other technology I remember in my career. And we're going back to the beginning of web, beginning of the internet, beginning of cloud-based architecture, even the iPhone moment and all the mobile technology. All of this is evolving so rapidly that people do not know what is possible, or even more specifically, most people do not know what's possible and what's not possible, which means that people that really do have a grasp on where technology is today can take advantage of that. And that taking advantage of where we are today is what I call the exploitation zone. This is what people with positive intent can do because they can create really cool new products and services that help society. But also, this is what really, really bad people can do as well. And they can take advantage of the fact that people don't know what's possible. They have no idea of the fact that it's really, really easy right now to create a conversational AI bot that can engage with real people that will sound just as human as I am right now and can keep people on the phone for 10, 20 minutes, extract information from them, throw that into a database without anybody knowing, that can then further an attack cycle. Or you can create a really good video deepfake that will trick most people. Or you can create disinformation with the click of a mouse tailored to individual people and groups and have the right imagery and the right text and everything else to match that. That's where we are. That is the exploitation zone. Technology exists that most people cannot grasp. They do not even know exists. And the people that are aware of that and know how to use it well can take advantage of all of the rest of us that are slow to adapt. But there's also a thing that we do in our discipline specifically. And the thing that we do, I don't think really serves people well. That is, you'll hear about a deep fake on the news, and then you'll see somebody like myself get on the news and will be interviewed for 2 or 3 minutes. And at the end of that news segment about the big deep fake that took everybody by surprise, the newscaster will ask, well, what do we do about this? And typically somebody that's being interviewed will say, well, if you want to be able to tell if something's a deep fake or not, you should look at the fingers, see if there's any deformations in the way that the fingers look, or look at the hair, or look at the background text and all of that. And I don't think that's doing a service. I think that's actually a disservice to society. Because if you've ever played with these tools, you know that those kinds of tells are going away fast. and some of them never existed for people who were persistent, because all you have to do is hit the generate button again and again and again until you get the perfect image that doesn't have those things. Or you get one that's good enough that does have those things, and then you bring it over into Photoshop and you fix the rest of it. Or maybe you don't use AI at all, and you take a real image of a real situation and you just say that it's something other than it is. Or you crop it to leave somebody out that's there, and you say that the situation is different than it is. Deception isn't limited by whether we are or are not using AI. And so for me, the question is not, is this real or is this fake? The question is, why does this exist in the first place? Why is it in front of me? What story is it trying to tell? What emotion is it trying to inflame? What does it want me to do or believe? That gives a lot more nuance to the conversation. Because let's say somebody is in a presentation that's all about deepfakes. In that presentation, they may feel like they have superpowers to detect every deepfake in the world, because they might start to spot little things that look off about whatever picture or video, or they might hear something in a deepfake audio and go, oh, wait, I can tell that's deepfake because of whatever. That is not how real life works. Real life works when we are scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, all of our friends are there, and then all of a sudden something gets slipped in. And we're not thinking in the context of deepfakes then. We're thinking in the context of real life. And when we're thinking like that, the frame is changed. So I always say, if you know, you know. In the context of a presentation about deepfakes, of course, you're going to feel like you can tell what's real and what's not. But in the context of real life, your mind's assumption is that the things around you are real. Add to that the fact that I would say everything around us right now, especially everything in social media, all the text that we read, the videos that we watch, the audio that we hear, the images that we see, the news reports that we read, everything has the fingerprints of AI all over it. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if you open your Instagram feed and look at it, you know many of the people that are there. They have the fingerprints of AI all over them because they're probably using filters on the picture. You have people that you know in real life that look way better on Instagram, I'll say it that way, than they do when you meet them in person. They might look a little bit younger. They might have less wrinkles. They might be made up a little bit differently. All of that, those filters that we've gotten really, really used to, where your friends don't even have pores in their skin anymore, that is AI. And so what that means is, if I'm trying to be deceptive, well, now I can actually create images that look more real than your friends, because I can show the facial imperfections. I can make the pores more evident. I can make it look like somebody's having a bad day. Also, I mean, think about even using Microsoft Word or Google Docs, where it's telling you, oh, you forgot a comma right there. It wants to fix your punctuation. It wants to tell you how to write better. Fingerprints of AI on your document. So this merging of synthetic media and real media is going to be a bigger and bigger thing that we have to think about. And so there is no open and shut binary question of, is this real or is this fake? It will be how much has AI touched this? And again, I think there are instances where it doesn't matter. The other thing that comes up over and over and over again is that we've seen through multiple studies is that people are not as good at detecting if something is real or not as they think they are. And even with old data like this 2022 study, we see that we've already hit the crossover point where society can reliably trust their own instincts. If I move over to a 2023 study, it gets a little bit worse. So this 2022 one, this was with images, and you can go take that test now. So the link is in the bottom of that. With this 2023 study that I want to talk about, What people were told is that within the next 5 videos they watch, they will encounter a deepfake. That percentage, that 21.6% number that you see there, is the number of times that people got it right, where they correctly identified it. So if within the next 5 videos, you're going to see a deepfake and the accuracy of predicting that is only 21.6%, well, that's basically 1/5. That's chance. At the same time, that same percentage, it would say that the one that was a deep fake turned out to actually be real. So that's not good either. When we are calling real things fake and fake things real, then we've hit an inflection point in our understanding of reality and our ability to perceive. I can give you a couple other scary numbers. From a study in 2018 on Twitter, now known as X, what they found is that fake content, false claims, lies, in other words, travel between 10 and 20% faster than truth. That's not good. And I don't think Twitter or X has gotten any better since then. And even when the corrections come out, people don't believe it or they don't see it. So that's not good either. The other scary thing is that when you look at legislation around the world that's starting to be passed on taking down synthetic media, taking down deep fakes whenever they're noticed, when it comes to companies like Facebook or Twitter or any of the others out there, the requirement that is being mandated is that they have to take it down within 72 hours. Well, that's a really, really long time when the falsehood is going out between 10 and 20 times faster than truth. That 72 hours is an eternity. That is a news cycle. That's a narrative cycle. That's enough for the lie to get implanted in our minds and for us to believe it. Even worse, if the lie is something that polarizes society, it's there long enough for us to act on it and potentially do harm to our neighbors. To believe a lie that would make a society take a specific action, like riot or destroy a relationship with a neighbor. So these times that we're in are times of very large, very pronounced social unrest, and AI, disinformation, and even misuse of real information only makes that worse. Now, let me give you a couple other scary things real quick. When it comes to generative AI specifically, what they've seen is that AI helps anybody up-level their game to where you could even be an entry-level person in a career. And if you are using artificial intelligence, specifically generative AI, like ChatGPT, to help you do your job, whether that's like brainstorming or analyzing or writing, well, now you can perform above the level of someone who has been doing this job for decades, somebody who is an expert that may not use AI. And even somebody that's an expert, they will get some improvement, but not near the level of improvement that somebody at the bottom gets. But an expert using AI will still do a little bit better. So that's potentially good news. But now let's think about this through not the lens of just creative work, but if you're a scammer or if you are a disinformation artist, well, now that means that even somebody curious or just starting out can operate at the level of a professional, somebody who's been doing it for decades. Even scarier, they can operate better than the level of a professional. And so that's something we have to be very aware of. When you talk about the exploitation zone, that is it. The other thing that we have to grasp is that this is now available to everybody. For between $0 and $20 a month US, you can do amazing things. You can make somebody, like a political figure or somebody in your organization, say things they never said or do things that they never did. That's pretty scary when you think about the $0 to $20 a month. That's the entrance fee to being able to do those kinds of things. You no longer have to be a nation state. You no longer have to have access to even like corporate level funds. You don't even need a couple $100 and a good user manual to make a destructive, weaponized fake right now, $0 to $20 a month, and using off-the-shelf tools. The other thing is many of them don't even have to be that good because our minds are wired for story. We like to believe narratives, and with the right image, with the right video clip, with the right purpose behind why all that is put together, we can create heroes and villains. We can have good versus evil. And again, falsehoods fly farther than the truth because that snaps into the mindset that people have, the biases that they have, the prejudices that they have, the fears that they have, the angers that they have. That's what story takes advantage of. It also takes advantage of hopes and dreams, aspirations. All of that can be weaponized too, right? So with that, in the book, I also talk about this concept that I call the 4 horsemen of online vulnerability. The confirmation crusader, which is confirmation bias, the emotional tempest, which is those inflamed emotions like fear or anger or distrust or even hope. All of those get taken advantage of by somebody who really wants to scam us or wants us to believe something, to promote their narrative, to promote their story, to get us to do or believe something that benefits them. Then we have the digital naive. That's just digital illiteracy. That is somebody that is at the bottom line of that human adaptability. They don't know what's possible. They have no idea how to engage with digital culture. They don't know that it's this easy to create a convincing fake right now, or even worse, they believe that they can detect it when it's there. And then the last one is the sower of discord. This is the inflaming of already high tensions. If I can create an us versus them narrative as I put disinformation out into the world, well, that will further fuel everything else and make those messages go very, very far, very, very fast. So let me give you a couple examples, and these are not meant to be politically charged or any way, but there are political figures and situations, at least here from the U.S., in it. So the first one is this Biden robocall. So Joe Biden, when he was campaigning for president early on, there was the primary, which is where people can go kind of confirm their choice for who they want to be on the ballot as president. And this was in New Hampshire, and somebody created an artificial voice of Joe Biden and had that call a bunch of people and say, you know, don't bother going to the polls. There's no need to do that. Well, it turns out that that was not Joe Biden. It wasn't even somebody from the other political party. It was and for those of you that don't know, Joe Biden is part of the Democrat Party here in the U.S. This was another person within the Democrat Party, but they were supporting another Democrat candidate. And so if people weren't showing up to the polls to ask for Joe Biden to be on the final ballot for president in the U.S., well, then their candidate, the other Democratic option that they were hoping would become the presidential nominee, well, then that person had a higher chance. And so that's really, really interesting because it gets to this concept of motive. Why are people doing this? Again, what's the story? Why is this in front of me? What is it making me think or feel? Ultimately, what does it want me to do or believe? We also had this deep fake image of an explosion near the Pentagon. And if we're thinking again, what's the story? What's the narrative? Why does it exist? What does it want? Well, you can kind of see over there on the right. What they wanted was confusion and social unrest, and ultimately to break part of society. And what they got with that is a big dip in the stock market over a short period of time. And so they got a real result from that fake image that was tweeted out on X, and it was tweeted out by what looked to be a very legitimate news source. But fake imagery, real effect. Here is another deep fake. This was after a hurricane went through several different states here in the U.S., and people were posting all of the aftermath. And they have this, really traumatized looking little girl holding a puppy. This image is actually pretty good. And it was tweeted out. And you look at the response of the person that tweeted it. This is a political figure from the Republican Party here in the U.S., and she's talking about how much it hurts her heart. Well, it turns out that even though she thought this was real, and may even be similar to some situations that had really happened, it was not a real photo. And people called it out, and they added context, and they were able to detect that it was a deep fake. But again, when we're talking about the fact that the narrative is what people buy into, even more than whether it's real or fake, what we see is that sometimes people don't care if it's real or fake, because look at the response that comes from this. She, in response to people saying, yes, this is fake, you should, not spread fake imagery, she says, I don't know where this came from, and really, I don't even care. I'm going to leave it up because it tells a story, and it tells a story that is representative of other stories that may or may not be really happening. And so now, again, this question of, is this real or fake, gets a little bit murkier, right? Because we find out that even when people are told that it's fake, they don't care if they believe it's representing a quote-unquote real story. So here's another one, and this is not a deep fake. So the previous ones that we talked about are deep fakes, but here's something that was not. This was a meme that was put out by Turning Point Media in 2019. And of course, here in the U.S., there's been a lot of social unrest and a lot of political unrest. And these people are saying, you don't want to get into like a socialism run type of society. And that's one of the ways that one of the parties will attack another one. They'll say that they're socialist. Now, in reality, this does not represent a socialist society. This image was taken from a supermarket in Japan in 2011 after they had an earthquake. And if you know anything about Japan, they are not a socialist country. They are very capitalist. And this woman was not suffering from the fact that she lived in a socialist culture. She was suffering from the fact that there was a big run on food, because after that earthquake, of course, there was a run on all of the supermarkets and they ran out of food. Now, I can tell you the people at Turning Point Media don't really care that they misattributed this photo. There's, of course, where that photo originally came from. That was from a photo essay in The Atlantic right after that earthquake happened. What they did is they just went and cropped in to make their point. And that's really, really dangerous. But it's also very, very human. And I think when we talk about things like human risk, we have to realize that risk comes from humans, yes, but risk is also aimed at all of us, because our minds are wired in such a way is that they want to receive these stories about us versus them, good versus evil, hope versus despair, or this party versus that party, this way of life versus that way of life. And that's what's being played on with all of this, whether it is a quote unquote deep fake or not. And so again, when I think about this, I think about getting to the heart of why the piece of media or the email or whatever landed in front of me. I'll say it again. What story is it telling? What does it want me to feel whenever I see that? And then ultimately, what does it want me to do or believe? And then just for fun, because people wanted to make a point, is, yeah, with AI, you can do anything. So we had the image of the little girl saving the dog in the boat. Now you can also make an image of a dog saving a little girl. And I think that pushback is fun, right? Because it does show people that would have otherwise really grasped onto that first image. It does disarm that a little bit by poking fun at it in a way that's not cruel as well. It just raises the issue and says, you know what, we can't believe everything that we see right now. And look at the absurdity of what we can create. So the last thing, this repeats a few things that I've said already. Why does it exist? What is the story that is being told? Who benefits from that piece of media? And what are the possible goals behind that thing existing? Then I'll end with one little framework that is not in the book. In the book, I talk about a framework called SIFT, which is very similar to this. But since we're talking about fake, let me give you a couple ways to think about these types of media that will help you disarm them. The first thing is, very similar to phishing training. Stop and think before you do something. So when it comes to assessing media right now, I think it's really important to freeze and then actually ask yourself, what is this thing? What is this email? What is this image? What is this news story? Whatever. What is it making me feel? And then based on that, you can start to ask some of these other questions, like what story is this telling? What is the narrative? And what are the emotional triggers that are built into that? Can I identify what those are? Then I want to investigate all the different claims and the sources. I want to see if those images or stories are being reported by multiple sources that I believe are reputable. And lastly, once we've done all that, we can actually know, we can confirm the story, whether this is very likely real, or whether this is very likely fake, or whether this is something that's real, that's being told in a deceptive way. All those are very important ways to start to view the world that we're in. You also have to ask yourself, if I decide not to react to or share or comment on this social media post that has me frustrated right now, is there really something bad that happens because I don't? And I think if we're being honest, if we just stopped with the freeze and feel and then went on with the rest of our day, the internet would be a lot better place, because we wouldn't get in these back and forth things that all they do is amplify the post itself. They make that deception go farther and faster. And so even if you just stop at that first bit, you will have helped the world improve. And the same thing for people in your organizations. The best piece of security advice that has come out in the past several decades when it's come to phishing or when it comes to stuff like what we're talking about today is just stop and think before you do anything else. And with that, I am out of time. I thank you so much again for inviting me to present at this conference. It was an honor to be with you. Wish that I could be there in person, but hopefully next year. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a great conference.